south of Scruffy.
A lot more about this world than I do.
I've got a few sets of headphones here, there, and everywhere. So dig the mug, man. I like that.
And those are the everybody's favorite piece of merch are the mugs.
Very
just because
cool.
they're so big. Yeah, I dig them too.
Very
They're
cool.
great. You can put a big old cup of anything in there.
No doubt.
About 12 ounces. Well, thanks for being here, man. I've been your name came up on the first ever podcast that I did, and
Were they wearing a badge?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I always knew we'd be talking to each other through a piece of glass since then.
I'm glad nobody has to write a check for Bell. So
Yeah.
that's cool, man.
No,
That's cool.
It was Matt Honkinen.
Yeah.
You know that dude?
Jeez, man. That dude's so freaking talented.
He's
It's
one of
unbelievable.
the-
And just a great dude, too.
Yeah,
So.
he is. His bands are always great, and
Mm-hmm, yeah.
and your name came up, and it was like, man, I've heard his name. I feel like I've heard your name for 20 years or more.
I've been here for a few, so
Yeah. How long is the radio? How long have you been at the radio station?
I started. Well, it depends on which journey you want to talk.
Right.
I started there as a student, as an undergrad in '85,
Okay.
winter quarter, walking over from Grieve Hall at 6 in the morning, Monday mornings, doing the 6 to 10 a.m. shift, and then graduated in '87. Came back in '88 as grad student, as the grad teacher assistant there, and I was program director from '88 to '91 when we switched it over to New Rock 90, and that was. There was no better time to be in college radio. It was grunge. It was jam band music taking off. Rap was kind of going into being hip hop. It became more than just music. It was a culture. And our local scene, which has always been so kick-ass. And so, it just makes my job so much easier. And so I did that for about 3 years. And then I've been back since '04, a year before my daughter was born. Started, so I guess that's going into year 17 this October, back as general manager and program director. So,
Okay. What's that mean? You just run the whole show?
yeah, it means it controls my life
I bet.
basically. But what had happened is through budget cuts and this, that, and the other, faculty changes and all, there just wasn't anybody in a position to really be the lifeguard at the pool at a student radio station, and you got to have one.
Yep.
Otherwise, there's going to be dogs and everything else in the pool. But so Dr. Sam Swan, who was my advisor, we went to church together, and so I'm friends with him and his wife. And so we had always kept up, even after I left. And so it got to the point where the station was just in real need of basically an overhaul. It was no longer being the effective learning lab to provide practical experience to students who wanted to go into broadcasting, and in particular radio. And, we had a really good track record when I was there. And so Dr. Swan said he always wanted to bring me back. And so he was able to secure some funding and gave me a call. I was at Metropulse at the time as their promotions director. And my brief foray into the dark world of print journalism.
Sure.
And which was a blast. And I was like, man, it's kind of a dream job, because not only is it the music I love, playing new music and introducing people to new music and being right in the middle of our local music scene, but more importantly, I'd seen as a student, grad student and undergrad, myself and others, what that station could do to not only open the eyes of potential broadcaster students who want to start their career, but light a fire under them. And, they find something they freaking love to do, that they get up every morning thinking, I want to go back and do it again. And that's what it did, and that's what I wanted to get it back to doing, because people much smarter than me, that's what they started that station for in 1982.
Gotcha.
And so Dr. Swan, a couple years later, turned it into more of a learning lab where students actually get credit as opposed to just volunteering. And so that was about the time I came on board as an undergrad. And then, so now, it's a full-fledged student lab. And, if it wasn't for COVID, we'd be running about 100 students every year through there, about 30 to 40 new ones each semester.
Wow.
And then we have a core of, 15 to 20 that we keep and are in the student management positions, if you call them. It was wild, because when I got back there, the place was in such bad shape, man. It looked like, the Delta house an Animal House. It was
Really?
it took me a month to clean the place.
Really?
But even then I knew, and there was no kids coming down there. There was no students really interested, maybe a handful. And I'm like, where is everybody? And that's what had happened. It had just dwindled to 4 or 5 guys and girls and their friends. And
No lifeguard.
Exactly. And, and this was with 1,000 watts. And when I was there as a student, it was only 128 watts, and you could barely pick it up to West Town.
Yeah.
Well, now
How
you
far
can
does that
pick it up.
go? That's what I was going to ask.
Now our footprint terrestrially is about 20 to 30 miles either direction. It's stronger going east, northeast, and southeast. But with a stream, as long as you got a phone, you got a radio. So, and there's work, we're trying to work hard to get funding to raise the power for our terrestrial as well.
Gotcha.
We'd really love to do that because we need to be able to secure more funding to keep the station going.
Sure.
So yeah, it's been 17 years this coming October
Wow.
that I will have been back as general manager, program director, which again runs the station. I oversee a lot from FCC regulations to our budgets to grading students, to obviously our musical programming. I'm in
Sure.
charge of that. I program each day. I do our promotions as well.
Gotcha.
I even dabble in some sales, and and I'm trying to get into this whole social media thing and learn it while I'm doing
tough.
everything else. It is tough because it changes constantly. That's the crazy part, and that's technology. But
There's new platforms every day. Seems
Yeah,
like.
we're getting ready to do a TikTok.
Really?
And,
Got to.
But that's where the students come in.
Have you heard of
And
Clubhouse?
so- not yet, but I'm sure I will.
It's new.
Yep.
Yep.
As long as it isn't Parlor, I'm good. But,
It's not Parlor.
but yeah, it's that's where I really lean on the students, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, okay, cool. Help us set this page up, and we'll oversee and advise, but you're going to be driving this puppy. And so, but it's tough because they're there for 4 months and then they go, or they're there for a couple years at most and then they graduate. But the ones that love it and find their groove, they stick around and work their way up into music director, sports director type positions.
So it's in the communications building?
No, it is in Andy Holt Tower, the Tower of Power there, 8-story building between communications and Thompson Bowling Arena. We're in the basement, the bowels of Andy Holt Tower, the bolt from Andy Holt. And so we're all the way at the bottom, no windows. So
Nice.
we just kind of guess at what the weather's doing. And other than that, it's unfortunately, because there's hardly any circulation or anything, we've really had to limit it for COVID. But it's Metro Pulse did a cover story on it once and called it Santa's Workshop. That's
Really?
how they described it, with all the students running around like elves and everybody having fun. And the bottom line is they're investing in their future when they come down there, and that's why it was put there.
Yeah.
So
What program is it? Most of the kids that end up.
journalism and electronic media is the major,
Is the
or
big
program,
major.
and then obviously college communications. But we take them from every major. Hey man, if you show a passion and you show a desire to get in there and learn and do better, and your goal is to make you better, well, that makes the station better. And so it's a win-win for everybody. So we'll take non-majors, non-communications majors, and we've actually taken non-com majors that have switched or flipped
Really?
to be com students because they get down there and they're like, I had no idea I'd love this. And next thing you know, they're graduating and getting a job in broadcasting. And so that's what it was put there to do.
Where's your funding come from? Grants
Ooh.
or
I
sales?
wish.
Yeah.
Sales, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because the tough part there, probably 90%, 85-90% of our funding, we need to bring in about $150,000 a year to exist.
Yeah.
We're getting some help now from the journalism and electronic media at the school, which is great because we need it, because what happens is when they took our funding away, it's totally stripped it a little over 10 years ago now. I guess it's closer to 13, 14 years ago. I used to spend 70% of the time with students, 30% working on branding, business, etc. It flipped. It went
Really?
30% working on the business end and just trying to survive. 70% working on the business end and trying to survive. 30% with students. That's not why that station was started. That I would rather have 70% spent with the students, working with them directly, giving them more hands-on work, but unfortunately, that's how it happened. And, when that happened, I had to hire a staff because I couldn't handle all that myself. And so that was more money we had to bring in,
Right.
and, repairs and updates. But we've been getting some help as well with some grants and some money again from journalism, electronic media, and a little bit from college communications for a couple of major software and hardware updates, because we've lagged behind there some too, because again, we're just trying to exist. And obviously with COVID right now, we've lost over $50,000 since last March. It's tough.
Really?
Trying my best not to lay anybody off, because that's the last thing I want to do, but
Yeah, you got to take care of your people first.
Yep.
They're going to do good work for you in the future.
Yep, they do. Yeah, it's me and 2 full-time staffers that run it. The rest are pretty much students and volunteer. Usually alumni come in and do the specialty shows at night, but they'll take students under their wings and show them too.
That's cool.
It's really cool.
So
it's
do you have 24
network.
hours of programming?
We're on 24/7, 365 unless Mother Nature or an electronic glitch like that happened this afternoon knocks us off air. And just so happened I was at Tomato Head trying to get some lunch to go at about 2:30, and we're off air, and so I have to get it to go, and I run back.
What
and
happened?
Get us. I'd like to know.
Really?
It was just something within the software that just went south on us, and it just signed us off, and so I had to reboot, do a couple of refreshes and a couple of manual changes, and then we came back up, and so that's good. But yeah, a lot of stations have an engineer, we don't, and so if I had a full-time engineer, I'd be able to lean on them, and they could tell me what happened, but we don't.
It sounds like you wear a lot of hats over there.
I really do, man. I've learned a hell of a lot about engineering, not by choice.
Right.
But we've got Tim Berry does help us with engineering as well, and that's really good too. He does a great job, but he's a very busy guy. And so, a station where you have the amount of people coming and using equipment we have every day, it takes a beating. And so,
I bet, and especially not professionals.
Yeah, exactly. They're just learning how to use that equipment.
Right.
And so, we try to stay as updated as possible and as on the edge. What I tell the students is we're going to do our best to where when you walk out of here, you're not going to be intimidated by any on-air control room you walk into. You'll at least know that's for that and this for that, and the rest they can teach you. Right. And so that's what we try to do is just warm them up. And as long as we can stay close to that, again, technology curve that keeps changing, we're doing as good as we can.
Speaking of that, it seems like your return to the station kind of lined up with, I don't know, a bit of a rise in digital and kind of a decline in terrestrial, right?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, obviously, a lot of that is who's listening. The younger crowd is your digital, and the older still love the terrestrial, but obviously are going digital too. But for us, that's great. That's more access. Yeah. You can't see that as, oh, damn, I got to go do it this way now too. We see it as, we can reach these people this way as well. And again, when you're dealing with a student population of 18 to 22, I mean, our number one listener group is actually 24 to 35 years old. Really? Male, female. That's good because they live in Knoxville all year round. Students come and go. Yeah. But that 18 to 22-year-old group, they're the one that really depend on the digital, and some of them have hardly, if ever, listened to terrestrial radio. It's pretty amazing, actually. In a class I teach, I make them listen to a station during the semester and then write a paper on it. But yeah, it was wild to see, and it's funny you say that about digital because when I came back 17 years ago, I was wanting to go back to our old name, New Rock 90. That's what it was. A lot of the old school listeners, some of the people you probably interview here, will probably still call it New Rock 90 because that's what it was when I was a student. I changed it to that years ago. And unfortunately, 2 things happened. One, there was another station in the market at that time that billed themselves at the exact same time as Knoxville's New Rock. And I'm like, an Arbitron who does ratings, they don't like that. Yeah. If you're that close, because people would get confused on who the reporting they're listening to. Sure. And the other thing is that old school listeners in Knoxville remember Rock 104 when everything went to digital. It's now Rock 103.5. And so I'm like, New Rock 90 probably doesn't work anyway in the world of digital. We got to have that 0.3. So I did some polling and some research on campus, and the students identified with the rock on campus a lot, so we were able to keep that rock moniker. We're primarily a rock station.
Little wink and a nod to the rock on campus.
It's our unofficial official mascot. So, yeah. And so, hence 90.3 The Rock is what I flipped it. It was the Torch when I got there, and that was a horrible name, and the students didn't really connect it with the Torch Bearer. Right. And at that time, there was like a Christian satellite network called the Torch, and we'd get these calls, people calling in, Michael English or whoever, Amy Grant, could you play him? We're like, why are you calling us? And that's what I found out. So it was a very functional title change in more ways than one, and people seem to like it, but I had to put that 0.3 because now in the digital age, you got to put that 90.3. It just can't be New Rock 90 anymore. But again, a lot of old schoolers still call it that, and I love it.
I'm going to start calling it that just so people think I know I'm
an
old school dude.
You'll probably see some old school bumper stickers still around town. They're black and green, and my buddy Mark Best Happy Hour used to work at Kinko's on the Strip. In fact, I did and a few other friends, and I swear I had those bad boys designed years ago, and man, there were tons of them, and you still see some of them around, actually. So
So, speaking of the ratings thing, you said Arbitron was the name of the.
It used to be. Arbitron was bought just recently by Nielsen. Nielsen does TV ratings.
Yeah.
And they're much more accurate because they actually have a meter on the TV that monitors what you're watching and how long.
Yeah.
Arbitron all went from memory. They would send you a diary and $1. And they'd say, write down over a week what you're listening to and when you listen.
Yeah.
Well, people's recall doesn't work that well
Right,
if you're
right.
carrying on your hip.
Yeah.
Nobody does that.
Right.
So Nielsen bought Arbitron, and now Nielsen is trying to make these people meters for radio so that, you know, you literally wear it and it will pick up signals, digital and terrestrial, what you're listening to and how long.
Does it analyze the waveform, or does it pick up the signal?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know the science of it.
Yeah.
I just know they're still working on it too,
Yeah.
because it was probably in the last 3-4 years, I guess, maybe a little longer. But Nielsen is still having to make that thing work, and so, but. You know, again, you've got to subscribe and pay a certain amount of money to even see those ratings. And now Nielsen is saying, unless you subscribe, you're not even going to show up in ratings. So it really doesn't do any good for us. We don't even look at it. You know.
Well, I was going to ask, like that kind of has to be a bit of a plus for digital, is that metrics are a little easier to come by, aren't they?
You would think.
Are they not?
Well, no, it is. You just need to have a measurement company that is strictly into the science and not into the politics of subscriptions.
Gotcha.
You know, it was very common when I was in commercial radio to see stations that subscribe to Arbitron score higher ratings.
It's
And
a
you could
pay-to-play
see that
thing.
it's not supposed to be, but again, you know, it's a little different because Arbitron really isn't regulated by the FCC. So Arbitron's gone, and I hope Nielsen can make a proper meter. But at the same time, if they're saying, well, if you don't subscribe to us, we're not even going to give you ratings and show what your ratings are, and it's just like, well, defeats the purpose. But again, we don't even have a budget to pay for that. So, you know, we just tell people, come to our events, talk to Mahasty at Tomato Head, talk to Ashley Capps, talk to Randy Burleson, talk to some of these business leaders who, you know, invest and underwrite in WUTK and have for years. And they'll tell you why. I was like, you don't need a diary. Ask them. These guys are successful.
Yeah.
They've been in Knoxville forever. They know what we do. They know what our listeners are very proactive. They look for places to go eat, bands to go see, beers to go drink, movies to go check out, hikes to be hiked, bike routes, you know. And so it's a very proactive listening demo. And the ones who have been on for a long time, or that's who I refer people to. Is like, well, how can you tell us you're successful? And again, we got to bring in $150,000 a year as a student radio station. There's not many in the country that could do that. There's actually not many that have to. I think about 96% of all college stations are funded. So we're in that little bitty 4%.
In the 4%.
Has to hustle it.
So Tomato Head and Randy at Aubrey's and all that.
Yeah, mainly
they've been
Sunspot, Stefano's, Fieldhouse Social. Aubrey's don't need our help.
Yeah, they'll be all right.
Yeah,
but they've been
fine.
working with you guys for a long time.
Absolutely, man. We, you know, one of our most successful fundraisers every November is our beer dinner at Sunspot, which is awesome, and it's a little, you know, a little higher echelon crowd than we usually have, and we get to pair up with usually a local brewery or something, and you know, do that 5-course meal, and we usually walk out there with a $4,000 or $5,000 check.
That's great.
But you know, the event's great too. We give out a lot of prizes and stuff, and so they've been great supporters. Randy's been a great supporter for a long, long time.
He's a great man.
Yeah, I went to school with him at UT, and so it's cool to have those relationships, you know. But I mean, part of that business end of it is relationships, but they also, again, they wouldn't throw their money. These are smart business people, you know, and so they know a good investment, and they see WUTK as a good investment, and it is also a tax write-off, so that if you're a good business person, you're going to find those too. So
it's excellent. Did you get to do the Sunspot dinner this last year? Or did you have to miss it?
No, didn't get to do it because of this COVID, and we hope to goodness we'll be back in November, not only because we need the dough, need the dues, as they say in Animal House, but it's just a great event, and you know, I host it and MC it, and you know, Randy's always there, and it's just a awesome event, and Randy says it's probably the best event. They do Aubrey's everything wide. It's like their number one in fun event, and he does it to really help us more than anything else, and so it's cool to see people like him that. Again, I wouldn't question their business sense at all. And so when they're saying, yeah, we want to invest and we want to do this, that, and the other, I tell other people, I think that validates us as much as anybody could.
Yeah. So not to be too commercially with it, but how can people who aren't able to advertise with you, like a Randy Burleson or a Mahasty or something like that, how can they, get involved and help the station?
I mean, you can donate. You can go
Yeah.
online and donate anyway. We got a safe, secure link to do that. We have from time to time College Radio Day. We'll do some auctions where we'll have, concert tickets, football tickets, basketball tickets, whatnot,
Cool.
and listeners will call in and we'll put a premium price on a package and they'll donate that for that. And but really that's the main. That anybody can donate, and we have lots of donors who do, lots of listeners who do. We have lots of alumni, especially the ones who really use WUTK as the springboard into their career. Mike Keith, voice of the Tennessee Titans, is one of our biggest supporters.
I heard about
He was
him.
my sports director in the late 80s when I was there, and he's now the voice of the Tennessee Titans and a good friend and one of our biggest supporters. We'll tell you that if it wasn't for WUTK, his career wouldn't have got started as soon as it did.
It's crazy.
And so yeah, we got a cool network, but COVID has showed us that we've got to find time and a way to work to put more of a consistent giving or givers list together that we can go back and hit these folks up. I mean, we turn 40 years old next year.
Wow.
So we're really looking to hopefully put together some sort of subscription service where maybe you pay $90 a year and you get some certain things back. But the main thing is that's your one-time donation every year. And if we could find 500 people to do that, we'd be in really good shape.
Yeah, the paywall thing is tough, and I think a lot of print publications really struggled with it, deciding whether or not to do it when all that came down, and people have to find value in it. Has to be a value proposition there for people to let go of their money, even though they love you. It's crazy. I mean, I struggle with it with this podcast. It's just finding a way just to keep the lights on. And it's just the loyal people, the loyal fans that do it. And
they do, and it's cool with us because a lot of it is our listeners who love the music, they love the variety. They like the cute DJs who say Bob Dylan, not Dylan, and things like that. And they're humans, so it's kind of cool to hear them make those mistakes. But they also know what an effective learning lab it is, and they know some of these students who have gone out in the community and figured out what they want to do in their life at WTK and used it to secure that job and do other things. And and we also are really big, as I learned early on in radio, that it's not just the music and all. You've got to be a positive impact in your community. So we work with some other nonprofits, Second Harvest, Joy Music School, community shares, doing the Brewers Jam and things like that we make sure we give back to. And I make sure the students understand that, commercial radio, especially in the 90s and early 2000s, and it just the deregulation and all, just corporate radio took over, and they took the personality out of radio, and they took the personal touch, and they took the local touch away. And we want to make sure we're always local. We call ourselves local music's best friend. But I also want to make sure these students know that the station can be used to make things better. And, we've really been busy doing that with everything that's going on campus regarding racism and the Pride Center and all. In fact, we started a show just for students to address those issues on air. The music end, I got into radio when I was 16 for the music, but then when I saw what my little AM station back home was doing to the community and the positive impact it had, every day at 12:30, the town would shut down to listen to local news to see who's lying in the funeral parlor and whose baby was born today. Yeah. And so, at 16, that made a big impact. And Greenville High football, Greenville High basketball, all that. And so I got into it for music, but then I started seeing the other stuff, and I'm like, okay, this is really what radio was created for, and that's to address needs in your communities that others aren't addressing. In order to secure a license in the past, that's what you had to show and prove. And then again, through all the deregulation, through the Reagan years especially, and some during Clinton years, it became more of just a profit-driven business. And that's why people quit listening to especially commercial radio in droves. And then when digital hit and all the other platforms hit, that didn't help either, obviously. Right. But commercial radio wasn't going to change. And so the cool aspect of all that, if there is one, is that more people went to the left of the dial, and they started listening to the WUTKs, the WDVXs, the WUOTs, because of that local flavor. You
can get Jack FM anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't tune into Sirius XM and win tickets to go see somebody at the Mill and Mine.
Sure.
So, can't see anybody there yet, but that's a real important part too, and something that we really push at the station that a lot of people don't realize that, but that's cool because, it's not like we want to be sainted for it. We, again, feel that is a role a radio station should play.
You guys have been top of my mind ever since I went to school there, as, just like the Daily Beacon, man, just like as big of as I'm as proud of the Rock as I am of the Daily Beacon. It's like, it's the thing. It's alumnus to, really take that stuff.
I hope so. I tell the students, and just a split second, I don't have, and I'm fine hearing here, but I've lost my right. But I don't know if that's, there you go, cool. I didn't know if that was affecting the whole. No. Let's see, what were we talking about there?
The alumnus really cling to those things that are unequivocally UT.
Absolutely. I tell the students when we go through training that college radio is a very fraternal thing. And when you get out and you meet people, other people work at UTK, WUTK in particular, you start talking that talk. And everybody else is like, what are they talking about? And then you start talking to other people who went and worked at other college radio stations, and it's very fraternal, And you're like, oh, man, I heard Mojo Nixon for the first time, or heard, the Beastie Boys for the first time, or whatever. And there's a really organic love that is involved, and whether you went to UT, but especially if you were a student in the station, it kind of always, I tell them college radio is never going to leave you. It will always kind of be in you.
Yeah.
And part of that is just the adventuresome, we have so many people that come through there who just love music, man. Yeah. They like music to slap them in the face and challenge them and find all this new music. And they're the ones that really find a home down there. You
rely on the kids to bring in to
help
program it?
Oh, yeah.
They know it's cool.
I mean, if you don't, you're a fool, I mean, I told them, I blow their mind with all these bands too. Like tonight I'm hosting the Mothership, and it's mainly bands from the 70s. And I had a couple students come in today when I was producing it and putting it together, and like, who is that? And, I'm like, well, this is mass production, or this is a live Commodore's cut. And, and so, but man, yes, they absolutely, I will, I absolutely lean on them to turn us on to new artists. But it's also part of the process down there because some of them don't make the cut, and that's that constructive criticism. I'm like, I enjoy the fact you brought this to me and you thought, maybe this is something we could like, but let me tell you why we're not going to play it. But most of the time it's stuff we will add, and it's just really cool because, my God, there's so much music out there now, man. With how easy it is to record a song now with the software and all, it's just it's hard to lasso it all in. I
dug into that. Do you know Garrett Sale, William Wild?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
He came on the show.
Talented.
Man, unbelievably talented dude. Mm-hmm. And I think we got into a little bit of that threshold of entry to the business is so much lower now.
Yeah.
So it's good, but it also makes the space a lot more crowded.
It really does, and it just and with COVID, when the artists couldn't tour, they had to stay out in front of people. Well, what do? You cut singles. And it's been one single after another because a lot of them aren't putting albums together because you got to tour on an album. That's one thing that it's vital that when you cut an album, you go tour because that's how you sell an album is they hear 4 or 5 songs for the first time at a show and they're like, I got to go pick that record up.
Yeah.
Well, now it's just been singles. They're just dropping singles just to stay in front of people and to exercise their art.
Yeah, there was a lot of strategy with these guys, right? Especially at the beginning of COVID that we're like, man, we've got an album cut, mastered, ready to go, but we don't want to put it out right now because we can't support it with a tour.
I would love to know how many artists are in that boat right now. There's tons.
Wes Bailey from Moon Taxi was sat in that chair and told me about that. I was like, you must be killing you to know that you've got this piece of work that you're just dying to put out there. And he's like, I think we're just going to kind of keep putting singles out and just kind of keep the wetting people's whistle a little bit until we can tour on it.
You can be Sturgill and put 2 bluegrass albums out in 2 months.
That was pretty sweet.
Yeah. His bassist, Mike Bubb's a good friend of mine. And that band he put together was freaking awesome. And it's amazing to see. But again, I love it because, when I first got into music in the 70s and all, singles were the thing. It was AM radio and it was singles. And you'd hear John Denver going into Foghat, going into a Commodore song, going into Olivia Newton-John, going into Roxy Music, going into the Stones. And so when all these singles started coming out, I mean, it's work. You got to go get them and find them. But man, I love it because it's just like adding new flavors at the ice cream counter. You know,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, give me that one and that one and that one. So
with Sturgill's 2 bluegrass albums, do you think that he strategically went about doing that do you think he feels like he alienated his fan base by putting out Sound and Fury?
No, he's an artist first and foremost, I think, and I would probably tell you that. I've worked with him a couple of shows, and he's an interesting cat. He's his own cat, and that's cool. I think he did bluegrass because that's what he started on. You know, I mean, that's what I grew up on. You know, I helped start WDVX, and both that, which kind of helped grow out of a bluegrass show we used to do called Sopping the Gravy. I just love bluegrass. Grew up with it. Sopping the Gravy, dripping with bluegrass. And so, Sturgill, I mean, when you grow up on bluegrass, man, it's kind of like the college radio thing. It never leaves you, and you got to exercise it. You know, I mean, I've been dying to go back to a bluegrass festival. It's been a few years, but
me too.
I went to tons of them, and I'd love to go back to one right now. But I think that's the main reason. Excuse me, is he just loves the music, and that music's part of him, and it allows him also, I think, to get back to play more guitar, which he's a freaking world-class acoustic guitar player.
He's great.
And he surrounds himself with great musicians in Nashville. A lot of those guys I've worked with and are just the best people in the world, too. So, I'm sure he's probably got 2 or 3 more records ready to go, knowing Sturgill, man. That guy's so freaking talented. But I think he really did it just because he loves that music, and that's what he started on.
And it seems like he just does whatever he wants to do, too.
More power to him.
Exactly. Isn't that great to see?
Yeah.
Instead of what a label wants you to do.
No doubt. He's, and it's funny. People are, he's an asshole. No, he just knows what he wants to do, and he's doing it.
Yeah.
And again, more power to him. So.
He definitely puts off that asshole vibe.
He does. He does. He's kind of earned it, but he's kind of earned the right to be that way in some ways. But again, I've worked with so many, professional musicians that can be that way or seem that way, but then you get backstage and they're just totally different. I mean, they're just totally different.
They're people.
You're just, you're hanging out watching baseball with them. Or,
I
mean, that was the coolest part of working concert promotion for me for 15 years or so. Was just hanging out with them off stage. I mean, it was cool. The best part is putting on a great show and seeing the people love it. But the other best part is just getting to know those artists, not as artists, but as people.
Yeah. So are you said, I heard you say Greenville, or is that where you're from?
Yeah. Greenville,
really?
Tennessee.
Cool.
Yep.
I go up to Paint Creek every now and again.
Ooh, that's some cold water.
It is cold.
I love it,
the
man.
Trout like it.
Yeah, they do. We've rode Dudley Falls, jumped off the cliffs up there. Go to Paint Rock right down by French Broad on the river there.
Yeah.
That was where our senior layout day was in high school.
I like it.
We actually released my brother's ashes right there where Paint Creek goes into the French Broad because it's such a special place for us. But it was cool. We didn't have the mall. We had the mountains growing up.
Yeah,
so that's what we did, man.
Kind of nice, right, man?
Yeah, that's what we did, and it was fun. And
grew up there.
Great place to grow up. Might be a good place to retire, but in between, just not enough options. But
not enough.
For some folks, that's cool.
As much opportunity.
Right. But it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
College there, right?
Tusculum.
Tusculum is there?
It's called, Tusculum University.
Where's
now.
Walter State?
It's in Morristown.
Morristown. Okay, so that's down the road a little
Wally
bit.
High.
Yeah, and that's and that's all kind of there in the same world.
Oh,
together
yeah.
a little
Hamlin
bit.
County is right there next to Greene County, Hawkins County. And that was, Morristown East was one of our big rivals, and so we'd play them. And it's Upper East Tennessee through and through, no doubt.
What were you guys up to as kids growing up in there?
Lord,
no
have
mall.
mercy.
Yeah.
Played a lot of wiffle ball
Yeah.
till we couldn't see the ball at night. Ate
that
a lot of
stuff.
cereal for supper.
Yeah.
Because they're always bikes, man. We're like the kids from ET on bikes. We
Yeah.
would just bike that's why I tell people I got the best calf muscles in the world. Is if you ride bicycles in Greenville, Tennessee, with all those hills, man, you can you learn to drive a straight shift on those hills. But we did a lot of running around, just having fun. Sports. My dad was a coach, and so
What did he coach?
he
Everything?
coached. He ended up coaching me in basketball, baseball, and football.
Really?
So
At the high school level?
he coached mainly rec league stuff, but he coached every level from flag football and t-ball up to high school level stuff.
Awesome.
And So
what was his job? Did he have a job?
Yeah,
other
he was involved mainly in he was assistant manager of the housing authority housing projects in Greenville, and so
cool.
I spent a lot of time at the projects growing up and had a lot of fun down there and learned to tie my shoes down there. I still remember that.
That's awesome.
So he was involved a lot in public housing and stuff like that.
So it was a government job?
Yes,
Like a HUD
yes, it
job or something
was.
like that?
Yeah, HUD job, and then he worked when shifted over and did like house inspection stuff for the city, codes inspections, things like that. Of course, very involved in the church, and he was a great guy and well known in a community, which
Really?
can be a good thing, but it can be also Officer so and so told me he saw the car out late last night. What were you doing? And so but I guess that helped keep me in check too. But yeah, I was blessed to have a great mother and father growing up, and it's a great town to grow up. I had so many close friends that are still so close to me now. Some of them living up here. As I said, I started radio back there, and that really jumped on me. In fact, I just lost my first boss to COVID from back there, who was my first radio boss. I know it. It's sad. It's affecting everybody. And he was a great man and great, again, who knew what a station was to a community. And so I learned a lot of that from him and from what they did there. But it was a cool town to grow up in. And again, we just leaned a lot on our friends to make up our fun, man. There wasn't,
Love it.
a lot of money, like I said, no malls, wasn't no Walmart back then. There was Grants and Woolworth, but other than that, yeah, it was really, man, just knocking around the neighborhood, running around, walking around at night and hanging out with the fellas. So.
What was the radio station? The first job? What was that like? Were you a high school or college guy?
Yeah, high school, man. It was, the World's Fair was such a cool thing. People don't understand how widespread of a positive impact it had in East Tennessee. I was in a class called AA Event, and it was kind of for advanced students. And so it was part of the World's Fair helped start it, which was cool because it challenged students to not only do this classwork, but you had to go do like an internship somewhere. So I was 16, and so they were like, we want you to focus on somewhere you may want to work later in life. And I'm like, cool, radio. So went down to the radio station and hung out the first day to do my internship, and they offered me a part-time job before I left. And so not only was I getting the class credit, I was getting paid, and 16 years old, on the air, loving it, sneaking on after the manager went to sleep at night, sneaking the Pretenders and B-52s on, and, on a little AM top 40 station, and which was fun. But now I look back on it, I'm like, man, that somebody had to know. But at the same time, it was kind of cool. But again, I just learned early on. I started it for the music, and then I just saw the impact that little AM station had on our community, the positive impact. And I'm like, this is for me more than I thought. And so I worked there. I'd go back home in the summer and work part-time. I worked on a farm back home as well, a tobacco farm. That's work. I worked in tobacco because any day I want to bitch about my job at WUTK, I think about being at the top of that tobacco barn in August trying to hang tobacco, and I'm like, I'm gonna quit bitching.
How many acres of tobacco was it?
It was different. I mean, you could work at different farms. You could literally pull up to some farms and go, hey, you need help, and
really?
tell you how much. But the last summer is when I finally was like, and I worked at the UT Experiment Farm, and it was 40 acres of world-class hybrid leaf tobacco, which means it weighed a ton, and it was huge burley leaf, and so it was so heavy, and we were on quarters at UT, and ETSU was on semesters, and most of the summer help there was either from ETSU or UT students. Well, ETSU went back early, and so they didn't have to hang, so it was all us UT guys that had to get up in the barn and hang the tobacco, But it was 40 acres tobacco, 300-acre cattle farm, and then a lot of other stuff, and man, it was tough work, but man, I worked with some great men that knew the land, and that's what they did all their life. And you really appreciate hard work. And you, like I said, when there's days where I'm like, damn, this job's killing me, I start thinking back. I'm like, it ain't killing me like that one. So it was good. Made some decent money for a summer, and because it kept you're so tired when you go home, you don't want to go out at night and spend your money.
Right.
So that
keeps you
cool.
thin too.
No doubt, tanned, buff.
Thin.
And my dad's like, boy, you were chiseled after that job. I'm like, cool, but
did you pick up smoking?
No, thank
Were you
God.
doing that?
That's funny you say that because in Greenville, man, it's like 70% of the people back there smoke. And
I bet.
my parents both smoke, but I've never smoked a cigarette in my life, and
nice.
never wanted to, and just Lord of mercy when you grow up with it like I did, But Greenville High School, our stadium was Burley Stadium, which Burley is a type of tobacco, and our yearbook was called the Auctioneer, from auctioneers, tobacco auctioneers. So I mean, the Burley, the Greenville tobacco influence was just huge, and it's sort of bittersweet, I guess, to see that influence die off some. But it's a lot of families made a lot of money off of it.
Is it still an industry there?
It is, but it's not like, because people don't smoke like
People
they
don't
used
smoke
to.
as much.
And
Yeah.
so
They're vaping
which I guess, but sure do in Greenville too. But yeah, that was just a good lesson, but I still work some at the station as well when I work there part time, and I've been literally working in radio since I was 16. So
That's really cool.
Yep.
So then you went to UT after that. You said 85 is when you went to UT, but you said so you were in high school during the 82 World's Fair.
Yeah, so it was cool.
Which
like
was
I
the
said.
energy.
That was part of it too. It was the energy, ecology, what it was mainly energy, and so that we took that class, and I got to do like 3 trips to the fair for free, which was cool, and it was really cool because drinking age was 18 at the time, and so you could change your ID because there was no picture on the ID, and we'd go to the Roman Room and have some high school fun down at the Roman Room even.
What's that?
But Roman Room was Sam and Andy's, was a deli on the strip, Greek deli.
Where was it?
So down where used to be McAllister's, when McAllister's was closed, it was right there. It was great, man. Sam and Andy's was more of the deli part. Roman Room was kind of this back room. And what was really cool about Roman Room was a lot of faculty would go hang out there. So you could really get to know your professors.
Oh, gotcha.
That was. But in high school, of course, it was another
Man, I
thing.
bet I bet the strip was so crazy in '82.
Dude, it was so different.
Yeah, Ruby Tuesday was probably the place then too.
Ruby's was great. Gabby's. Well, this was '83 was when I started. Fall of '83. I graduated from Greenville in '83, June '83, and so started fall of '83. And Gabby's was a cool club. The U Club and Library was huge.
The library.
So many bands.
I remember my
there.
dad telling me about that.
That was great. There was Quarters. There was, of course, OCI, which it was just great. It was down by where Sunspot is now.
Same building, right? Is it the same building?
It's the one that's not open right next to it, basically.
Yeah. Do you think Randy's going to revive that brand?
I've actually toured it with him, and man, it's in such bad shape. I don't know that he's got the capital to do it yet.
Yeah.
He just opened a bunch of Aubrey's not too many years ago, and he's put a lot of his capital. That's been smart. So they'll either expand Sunspot, or if he can't open OCI up again, they'll expand the kitchen. They'll knock the wall down to where the Sunspot kitchen's a little bigger with that, and he's told me some plans. I'd love it. I mean, it was Peyton's place, man. Peyton loved it. Those open-faced sandwiches were great there. But the strip was incredible. I saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers for the first time there at Gabby. What was the place called Gabby's? And of course, it's no longer there. And second place I saw them was at the library. So many bands on the strip: Bodine's, Fish, Wilco. Just on and on and on. But it's a lot different now, and it's a shame too, because the one thing you really miss from the strip that I'd missed, like China King and Vic and Bills. Local bands, it was an incubatory. You could walk from the fort over and see your friends play and walk or stumble back home. But there were so many local bands that played on the strip, and you kind of had to do that before you got to the old city, to Planet Earth, Ace of Clubs, Manhattans, whatever was happening in the old city. So it was a really cool place where you could kind of learn to be a band. Because the crowds were there to see you, but that wasn't quite the priority most nights,
The beer helped.
Yeah, no doubt. Long Branch is another. So, it was just, it was a lot different environment. It was a lot more crowded with people. I remember it being assholes to elbows, both sides, on weekend nights. And, of course, game days were nuts. But it was a lot of fun, and that's where I really, started diving into live music when I got up here. It was Smokin' Dave and STDs and all these cool bands. And
why have I seen some Smokin' Daves and the Primo Dope stuff come across, like Todd Steve's?
Yeah, they're recording a new record. Yeah, that's
okay.
Todd. It's Todd and Dave and Doug, and man, I can't wait. It's going to be so good.
I got to get Todd in here. I've been threatening to for.
He was our first music director at WUTK. So
was he really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Absolutely. Chris Lowe from ESPN was our first sports director. director. I mean, it's pretty wild if you look back. But
Chris Lowe's been getting some time lately.
Scooping, man. Yeah, he's pushing for Lane Kiffin to come.
Is he really?
Yeah, but it's cool. You know, like I said, the strip was cool, and then the old city was just had its first renaissance.
Was Ella Guru's open yet?
Yeah.
Where was that?
So where the fondue place is now? That was it. You know,
Really?
Planet Earth was the shiznit. That was the great place. There's 121 Jackson there, and you know, saw so many cool bands there, and had a great we had a great relationship as a radio station with them, and with Ashley at Ella's. I got to interview everybody from Ernie Isley to Adrian Ballou to Steve Forbert. I mean, so many people at Ella's, you know, that Ashley brought in, and then Manhattan's, you know, was kind of the blues club, and Ace of Clubs opened up a little bit later.
Did Hoorays ever do music?
Not really. I mean, if they did, it was like, the Chillbillies or something upstairs. But, Hoorays was great. Man, the old city was so cool back then.
I remember going to Tomo there when I was a kid.
Oh,
eating
man.
Sushi
And then even a little bit later, Bullfrogs, the reggae club.
Yeah.
But it was so
BW3.
cool because a lot of the owners were just colorful characters, man.
bet.
It was almost like a sitcom or something.
And now one dude owns it all, pretty much, with Carleo, and then now Randy Boyd, too.
Yeah, I will just say that I like the direction Randy is taking it in a lot more than what Dwayne took it in. I'll just leave it at that.
No, I agree. The nightclub thing. How many nightclubs do you need in that square block?
Well, I think what Randy wants to do is he wants all the old city to work together like it used to, as opposed to just little, bitch battles that some owners have with each other. Because a place like that, you've got to all work together. I mean, I was on for the board of Rhythm and Blooms, and I was one of the main ones pushing to bring Rhythm and Blooms to the old city back, a few years back, because that was, I thought, I'm not just myself, but a few others thought, man, if we could bring that down there, that could really help the momentum for the old city to start swinging back in the right direction, which means showing you more people will come down there, which means people with money will start buying property.
Sure.
And so that's happened. And they put that baseball stadium down there. It could get real interesting.
Did you see they tore down the water tower?
No, I did not. Wow,
I noticed it for the first time a couple days ago.
It's on then, because Randy wouldn't tear down something with the UT logo on it unless he had to.
Yeah,
so. And more power to him.
I know. I was like, okay.
I love it, man. Baseball was my first love.
Me too.
I mean, so the only time I cried in high school was my last baseball game.
Really?
So I love the game, and if my knees would allow it, I'd still play it if I could.
Me too.
But I'm excited about that, and I know some people aren't. But I think when they see what can really happen, not just baseball, but multi-use.
Yeah, that's the thing that Alan Sims said when he was here was, there's a lot of opportunity for that space, and it doesn't just need to be used 30 days a year.
Absolutely.
It needs to be used all year long.
Absolutely.
And I think, they've dabbled with that at the Smoky Stadium with doing concerts and things like that, but we could do a lot of cool stuff there.
No doubt. And, with more downtown residential, I mean, your audience is there. They don't have to drive in, but there obviously will be people driving in. And, people are like, where are we going to park? Well, they'll find some parking, but also just right over the hill is the Civic Coliseum parking garages.
Sure.
So people don't think about that. You could easily shuttle to baseball games from there. It's like the ag campus for football games. So
take an Uber.
Easily. Or walk over. Hell, it's 2 blocks.
Exactly.
Walk,
Yeah. Somebody told me, I think it was, I forget her name, Melinda at CAT. She was like, we did a study, and the most sustainable thriving cities in America are the ones where it's hardest to park a car downtown.
As well it should be. Yeah, I mean, it
makes sense.
Well, a friend of mine lives in Greenville, South Carolina, one of my best friends, and
great city. I used to live there.
Yeah, and he said, man, it's a cool town. I did a lot of shows at the Peace Center down there years ago when I was with AC Entertainment, and so he was like, man, when they moved that ballpark downtown,
game changer.
Everything changed. Yeah, literally.
Yeah, so. That bridge, the single-sided suspension bridge that they have at Falls Park, was a big thing. Yeah. And then the West End, it started to creep west when they built that stadium. I worked down there at the West End, right next to the stadium.
Yeah,
it was crazy. It was so busy all the time. And then I went back 5 years later after I moved away, and it had developed even more in the other direction. And that was much like the old city. It was a place where you saw people sitting around begging for money or doing drugs or whatever, and then now it's,
And they did a good job with pedestrian traffic in Greenville, downtown Greenville. They made it safe for people to get out of their damn car and walk.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
and when I mean safe, I mean not being jumped by a robber, but from traffic. They would block streets off, make pedestrian wise. So
yeah, they have that one street, Main Street, that just is kind of the thing. You know?
That's it.
And there's a free trolley that runs up and down it all day long.
Yeah. What a concept.
Yeah, exactly. It's great. So, we got to get to the AC stuff. So you were at UT in '83, and then you worked at the radio station in '85 when it was, what was it called then?
Then at that time, it wasn't even Album 90 yet. I think it was just WUTK, and then another grad student came in around when I was music director at '87 and named it Album 90.
Okay.
And then I graduated. I was music director like '86, '87. I was the first class to graduate in the new arena, so I was December '87.
Okay.
And I got back in fall '88, and that's when we flipped it over to New Rock 90. And I was there from '88 to '91, and that was when my concert promoter career started by default.
Really?
Because the deal at WTK, we were so involved working with all those old city clubs. Ashley at Ella's, Chuck Burnley, the late, great Chuck Burnley at Planet Earth, the guys from Nashville at Ace of Clubs, and then later at Club Taboo, and on and on. And these bands would come and play, and they were getting great crowds, and we'd interview them all, and they'd always come by the station. So we developed great relationships with people like Spin Doctors and Colonel Bruce Hampton and his guys. I mean, we became good friends with them because they would literally stop at the station before they would go to the club and interview, and we'd catch up with Toad the Wet Sprocket, just bands like that. They were really cool. And then these clubs started shutting down. It was the Underground opened up, and that was the big dance club, and it kind of shifted some things.
Really?
And, yeah, I mean, it was kind of interesting because I did a dance night down there. I was a club DJ doing at Planet Earth, doing New Rock 90 dance night, and it was freaking huge. It was nuts. I never thought I'd do anything like that. And and then I remember when the Underground opened, it was a legit huge dance club, and so it kind of changed things in the old city, and then some of the places, Planet Earth, and then Ashley with Ella's when he moved it to the Foundry, and then finally, shut it down, and Ace of Clubs and all going more dance too. And so all these bands who, again, Southern Culture, who are on the Skids, who I've become good friends with and all, they're like, man, we can't drive through Knoxville. We've got to stop and play. And they're like, you got to do something. I'm like, hell, I'll book the show. So I reached out to Peter Calendaruccio at the time, who was one of the owners of Club Taboo that took over for Ella's. Reached out to the guys at Ace of Clubs, who were from Nashville. That's where the old Blue Cats was. And I reached out to the library down the U Club library on the Strip. And I'm like, I got these bands. They bring in 100, 200, 300 beer drinking people. And can I park them on your stage? Yeah. And, man, I learned by fire. I mean, I had baptism by fire.
I've heard it's a tough industry.
It's really tough. People have no idea, but for good reason. So, by default, I started booking shows, and it just freaking took off. And so when I had some offers when I left WTK for the last time in grad school to do some other things, but I'm like, man, I'm kind of liking this show business.
Was it your own business?
Or were you just at that point, I actually formed my company called No Cheese Music, and cheese was with a Z. I was before all those Z guys.
The Z cheesers.
And it was a functional title because at that time, if you think about it, that's the early 90s. So Big Hair Music was still around, and there was some really bad bands too, and I didn't want to deal with them, and so I thought, well, maybe if they'll see No Cheese Music, they'll think we shouldn't call him, because we're cheesy. So it worked, but I was about one of the only promoters in town at the time. My buddy Clint Brewer did some shows, and he's down in Nashville now. And I was about it. And then Mercury Theater after that was when it really went to that next level, I guess. And I started booking shows at the Electric Ballroom, and they just got bigger and bigger. And I started working with bigger bands, and all these booking agencies were calling me. And I had part-time jobs at like the Record Bar and then Disc Exchange and all too. So because you wouldn't make money booking shows, not at the club level, you just don't.
Really?
No, you don't.
You ever have to take a bath? Did you?
Oh, hell yeah.
Really?
I sold so many CDs to pay bands,
Really?
Before. Yeah, just, and it could probably equaled out, over the main, over the hall. But I was just doing, it was me and some of my friends would work the door for me, and we'd Dude, I've walked through all those streets in Fort Sanders so much, putting up flyers, and the cops would hassle us because I said it was trash, and so a friend, I would take my staple hammer and the flyers, and a friend of mine would walk with me with a trash bag. And we would rip all the old flyers down and put them in the trash bag. So when the cops would pull up, they'd go, "Hey, trash." And I'm like, "Yeah, here's the trash, and we're collecting it." And they're like, "Oh, well, go ahead. Because posting flyers at that time was illegal.
Right.
So, man, I probably got a million staples in those
I was going to say, those poles are riddled with staples, man. I'm sure there's still a few.
I was the first one to use one of those staple hammers because when you're in the fort at 2 a.m., putting flyers up, that staple hammer looks pretty intimidating.
Oh, it does, yeah.
So,
yeah.
But man, I did the flyer thing, and it was really interesting, and it was getting pretty successful. And then Ashley came calling. He's like, "Hey, you want to do this full time? I could use somebody." And they were growing at the time. They were still above the Bijou, and he was wanting to really stretch out into the Southeast more with the company. And it was health benefits and everything else.
How
that I
big
didn't
was
have.
AC at the time?
Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, about 6, 7 employees maybe. And I
talent buyers and promoters.
Yeah, and marketing.
Okay.
I did a little of everything. I also repped shows a lot too. So I was one in the office that literally would rep a show till 2 a.m. and be back in the office at 9 a.m. putting a marketing plan together for Bob Dylan's 5-show swing in the South, things like that. Cool. And so it was exhausting, wore my ass out. I did a lot of travel because, again, that was when AC was starting to really spread out, into Chattanooga, Birmingham,
Asheville,
Greenville, South Carolina. Asheville was our second home, and I was the Asheville point guy. I worked more shows at Be Here Now and Pack Place, and man, it was amazing.
The Orange Peel, right?
Oh, yeah. It was, Be Here Now was like the first non-smoking club, and it was just awesome.
Where was that?
It's right there on Biltmore.
Okay.
Yeah, right near the kind of circle place. It was so huge. Be Here Now was huge. It was a big deal. That's where I got to work and meet and work and get to know people. Everybody from Elliott Smith to Lucinda Williams to Patti Smith to G Love. I mean, the shows we did in that place were just amazing. We went into Durham, we went into Greensboro, Winston-Salem.
That's a long way.
Lexington. Oh yeah. I mean, I would literally put marketing plans together in the morning and get my truck and head out, work a show, and come back, or stay the night if it was too late. And so I worked there for about 7 years. And it really grew. We had 3 different offices maybe, at the time, because we kept growing. Wow. But it was tough growing, man. There were times too, where we didn't know.
Weren't sure if you're going to make it?
Yeah, no doubt. But Ashley's a genius. He knows what he's doing, and, he worked us hard. You work hard in that business, and people don't understand and realize that, but, he told us once, and I'd already known this, but when you hear Ashley say it, it validates it. He's like, when people buy a concert ticket, they're buying a golden ticket, and they don't need to know what happens from 6 a.m. until 3 a.m. when you load them in, when you got guys loading in a Leslie or a B3 Hammond, or, and they're pushing his, I remember loading Wilco in the rain up the steps at Flamingo with a freaking B3 and Hammond, and you're just like, God, what am I doing?
Right.
But then they get on stage, and it's just like, this is freaking magic.
Bliss for everybody in the crowd and on stage.
Absolutely. And you look at them and you're like, this is why I do this. And then you got to load it all out. But that's what Ashley made the point. It's like, they buy that ticket. They don't need to know how we're working our asses off back here.
They buy it so they don't have to do it themselves.
That's true. And that's their little slice of fun, their slice of heaven, being in the same room with their idols or who they grew up listening to all their life or whatever, or being able to bring their mom or dad to a show that they turn them on to, and or your friend or your date or whatever. And so, I learned so much working with Ashley and great people. Troy Sellers, Tom Bugg, who's still around.
Yeah. Tom Bugg's
Ian
at the Bijou, right?
Yeah. Ian, who's still there at AC. you know, so, and they're all great friends of mine and still are. And, you know, we just, you know, used to have those hot summer night shows at the World's Fair Park outdoors.
My
Just
first
awesome.
ever concert was Dave Matthews Band at I was in 4th grade.
There you go.
1994,
those
95.
were great, man.
They
those
were amazing.
Were awesome.
They were
those
amazing.
were work, but they were awesome. You know,
There was some Counting Crows stuff that happened. Steve Miller Band.
that was a great show. I remember storming that night too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could go on and on. Pretenders, Neville Brothers, you know, just on and on and on. B-52s, Widespread, G-Love, blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
blah.
yeah, yeah.
But, so yeah, I went there and so I worked. I guess it was
7 years.
95 to 2003, 96, 2003, something like that.
Wow.
I folded up no cheese and went straight to AC.
I love that.
Worked hard, made lots of contacts, as you can imagine. It's
bet.
all about networking, man.
Yeah.
It really is. And I quit 3 months before the first Bonnaroo, because if I had to work Bonnaroo, I would have gone postal. I was at the
Really?
point where I was like, man,
Yeah.
I'm just have had enough.
So you knew Bonnaroo was coming.
Oh yeah, we worked
Yeah.
the first two festivals that were the pre-Bonnaroo Bonnaroos.
What were those?
They were called Mountain Oasis festivals.
Somebody told me about those.
Yeah,
I forget
yeah,
who it
right
was.
outside of Asheville. First one, very successful, very organic again, on this dude's property way back in a holler, and it snowed, but it was just freaking amazing.
Wow.
And it was our first test at putting our first festival, real festival, 2-3 day festival, together. And then we had the second one booked over in, a little bit on the other side of Asheville, and what would have been a much nicer venue, but 9/11 happened. And so there were artists that couldn't even get in the country,
Right.
and people didn't want to travel, and people couldn't travel.
Yep.
And it was 98 freaking degrees that weekend, and it was tough.
When did you
We
guys
lost
call it?
our ass. We didn't. We did the festival.
Oh,
know?
you did it.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
2002, I guess. 2001, 2002. When was 9/11? 2001.
2001 was
So-
9/11. The first Bonnaroo was
Okay, yeah.
2002.
So yep. So that's what it was. It was pre Bonnaroo, and like I said, I was about to get married for the first time too, and concert promotion is not very conducive to a good marriage.
Yeah.
So if you travel, especially in rep shows like
Yeah.
I did, so yeah, man, I took a step back, and at the time, I guess I was ready to get back into radio,
Yeah.
and I would also, at the time, I'd already been doing Sop in the Gravy with Tony Lawson
Yeah.
from DVX and my buddy Shane Timon.
Were you in the trailer?
No, well,
in the
this is
camper?
pre-trailer, dude. This is pre all that. We were up at WQLA and Woodson's Mall in La Follette doing it, you know,
Really?
and just, man, people
How far did that
loved
go?
it. It was-
How big was the? You said 1,000 watts takes you about 30
yeah,
miles.
that was, I guess, what are they, 3,000 watts? So we
Okay.
would reach into North Knoxville a little bit, but mainly into, you know, Anderson County, Campbell County, Halls, that area.
And well into
Lake
Kentucky,
City,
probably.
which is now Rocky Top, into Kentucky some. And yeah, so I think what we did there was we really relit a fuse, because bluegrass is always big in this area, but we loved it, and people felt our passion, and they heard our passion, and then you know, started bringing bluegrass bands in with that show. Actually, it was even before AC, and then started booking a lot of bluegrass. I did with AC and doing the bluegrass at the Bijou series, and on and on and on, and so bluegrass was really important to me, and I was doing Sop in the Gravy, and it was going great, and then WDVX was born from that. So yeah, we were in the camper there some, but I went for a full-time job. I was offered to be promotions director, and at that time, you know, this was when Americana. I mean, I was booking Americana bands before Americana existed.
Was a
You
genre.
know, I was bringing Whiskey Town, and of course the V-Roy, Viceroys were all my good buddies, and you know, Six String Drag, Old 97s, all those bands, man, I was bringing into town, and it was just a huge following here for me. You know, it was just that rootsy music. And in fact, WDVX, when Tony and I were, you know, we would do a lot of skull sessions about WDVX, because it's a 45-minute drive to and from La Follette to the radio station.
You guys ride
And,
together?
Oh yeah, man.
Windshield
Usually whichever car was working that week, and usually my truck. And so I remember crossing the Cumberland River, and Tony was like, Tony was one, you know, we were like, well, man, we just need to make Sop in the Gravy a station. That's what WDVX needs to be. It's just bluegrass. And I'm like, you know, it's such a defined audience, man. It's going to be tough to make money and stay on the air. And so I was like, here, listen to this cassette I made. And it was called This Is Americana. And it was hardly before Americana the name was being used, but it was just a lot of bands I was bringing to town. And he was listening, you know, it was a really cool mix, but you could mix bluegrass in with it, or you could mix folk, or singer-songwriter. And so I remember, I'll never forget, we just crossed the Cumberland River, and I popped that tape in. I'm like, this is what I think we need to do, dude.
So you guys curated WDVX right there.
Yeah, we listened to it all the way. We were like, well, I was like, what do you think? He's like, he's like, I want to hear more. And so we did. And but then I also I got a full-time job. My dear friend Aaron Snuckles, who I've known for years and worked at AC with me some too.
Big wheel guy?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And great promoter, go-getter, ideas guy. Definitely someone I've always looked up to and learned a lot from. And so they offered me the promotions job at 100.3 The River at the time, AAA commercial station, 100,000 watts, 6 states. You know, I'd get requests from Alabama, South Carolina, Georgia. And I got to also program and host a 2-hour Americana show called Americana Cafe Saturday or Sunday nights. And it went through the roof. I mean, I was like drawing in, you know, like 16 shares.
I want to say like Gillian Welch and all that stuff was coming up
right when it was coming
and it was
out.
Getting big.
Lucinda Williams, you know, and so it was right when it really started taking a hold, you know, bluegrass or Americana as a genre. And I went to, you know, to a bunch of I guess industry type seminars and stuff too, and made our name known. People knew what Sopping the Gravy was and knew what Americana Cafe was.
That's cool.
And we did some great things with the river, you know, Rocking on the River, still doing. And man, it was unreal. I mean, what we did at the river was, it's still, I look back and I'm like, you know, man, it's just, I mean, it was like dream job, dream team. We had like the dream team of Knoxville radio in my mind. And
I enjoyed that station a lot. I remember it. I was sad to see it go. It was a little lighter than you know, your classic rock station, but it still, you know, bled into the rock world a little bit.
Yeah, it's AAA, which is Album Adult Alternative, is what that's called.
Gotcha.
And for Knoxville, it was. I mean, I remember, you know, playing Los Lobos on commercial radio, and you know, my music director at the time, Shane Cox, program director, who is now program director of B97, great guy, good friend. He pulled me into his office one day. He goes, "Hey, I want you to listen to this." He goes, "Turn it on," and he's like, "You know who this is?" I'm like, "That's Los Lobos." Yeah. He's like, "I think we're going to play it." I'm like, "Yeah." And so then I knew, and you know, and so we did some really incredible things. Again, another station that served its community, that had local DJs who knew what was going on locally, who knew the flavor locally. Yeah. You know, we did Saturday Night on the Town with Jason Mraz and Maroon 5 before anybody knew who they were. 5 or 6. I mean,
Maroon 5, yeah.
Yeah, before anybody knew who they were. And I gave Jason Mraz some really good moonshine, and it tripped him out. I mean, he could not, he was just like, "I've always heard of this."
People give me a hard time for liking Jason Mraz. That dude is a great
I'm going to tell you what, he's a really good dude. He's a good cat, man, and we had a good time. Yeah. So, you know, we did some great things, and then we come in one day, and the owner's bank guy is there, and he's like, "Well, they've sold the station to Citadel, and you're all fired." And we're like looking at each other going, "What?" That's commercial radio. That is corporate commercial radio. You know, 2 of our sales ladies were pregnant. You're gone.
Doesn't matter.
No, hell no. You know, so you know, and then we had we blew it up, dude. Mike Hammond, who at the time was the program director at WUTK, said he said he had never seen an audience response to anything like they respond to us.
Were they pissed?
Oh my God, it was unreal. And we had back at the old think tank. You remember? I don't know if you remember that.
Was
Scott
it with a
West.
Was there a Q on the think tank?
Yeah, it's southbound now, I guess, isn't it? But Scott West's first venture into a bigger club. And so we did our last broadcast. We broadcast live from down there. We called it The Day the Music Died. And we had T-shirts made. And
you weren't bitter.
People were freaking crying their eyes out. It was like a huge funeral, man. Yeah. And we were there live, and people crying on stage. And it was just, you know, it was something. That station meant a whole lot to people, and we were very proud of that.
I remember loving it.
It was really
it was special, and I always remember why'd it go.
Yeah,
I always remember thinking
corporate radio thought they could come in and keep it the river and keep maybe a couple people on air and
make
do
it
the same,
seem local,
you know. Yeah, and it just went. Yeah. And people refused to work with them. Artists refused to play for them.
They got blackballed.
Yeah, it basically did. My show, I took it to. I actually from there went out to what was at the time Max 105.3. It was
Took your
a
Americana
80s
show?
station, yeah, and I flipped it, which means you flip their format. I flipped it from 80s to AAA, what we were doing at the River,
Yeah.
but a little edgier. And with Todd Etheridge, who is just a great guy, and Tony Basilio was there at the time. And so I did Americana. They wouldn't let me use the word cafe, so I did Americana Lunchbox, noon every day, and I did another Americana show at night on Sundays, and was there for a few years as well at WFIV, helping out there too, and being a consultant for them too, and then I guess it was there. I guess I went to Metro Pulse from there and did some print news and put Metro Fest together, which was a huge festival we did on Market Square, which was amazing.
I miss the Metro Pulse so much.
I do too.
I think everybody
miss
does.
those people so much. They were, it was just an incredible group of incredibly creative
And
people.
it was around forever, too, I
Yeah.
felt like. How many years? 20 years?
Good Lord, I don't know. I want to say 18 to 20 maybe. I'm not sure, but boy, I miss it for so many reasons.
Such an important publication for
I
our
know
town.
it. I know it.
And
yeah.
the Mercury tried, but
They did. They were doing a good job, but again, it's all about them Benjamins, unfortunately, and you got to make enough to pay people what they're worth.
And ad sales just can't do it.
Not print anymore, unfortunately. I don't think. Unfortunately, again. But I mean, my father-in-law is Sam Venable, one of the most successful writers ever, the Knoxville News Sentinel, and it's just heartbreaking to, see print people like that who are so good at it, being phased out. It's like this shouldn't happen, but it does, and that's, I guess, as John Prine says, he wrote it all up as the progress of man. So. But it was interesting. I loved working print media. That was fun, and that Metro Fest was fun. We had Clifford Curry and the guys that were in the amazing Rhythm Aces. We had their original band back together. Just a really incredible night. I put the festival together. It was on Market Square.
For the paper. What was your job
I was
at the
promotions director. So I literally helped do promotions and stuff and promote the paper and put events together and stuff like that. And then from there, I was there one day when I got the call from Dr. Swan. He's like, Benny, Sam Swan, like, I'm thinking about hiring a general manager at WUTK. What are your thoughts? I'm like, my thought is I'd love to do it if you can get the money. And he did, and I did, and that was October of 2004, I guess. So here we are, man. Yeah, here we are. So.
Well, I got to say, just your name gives me chills almost because of how long I've heard it for, and because of how I just feel like you're so important to what comes out of this town. I think the university is so important, and you're a really big part of what comes out of the speakers there, man. And we appreciate it.
I appreciate that. That means a lot for people to say that and to feel that and to mean that. I just like to give my friends a place to play, man. That's everybody's like, why don't you play? I'm like, somebody needs to put them on stage. I'll do that part. I mean, my parents were in a gospel band growing up, Southern gospel, and so music's always been a big part of our lives. My two older brothers, huge influences on me musically. I mean, when I was growing up, we listened to everything from the Andrews Sisters to James Brown, and then bluegrass. You grow up around that too, and so, it's just so cool that these people, they're my friends before they're my clients, or I get them. Right. I mean, that and I want to do as good as I can to put them in a situation where, they all they have to worry about is making music. I'm gonna take care of the door. I'm gonna take care of the promotions. I'm gonna do what a promoter is supposed to do. You do what a musician's supposed to do.
Yeah.
And that's the way I worked. That's how I approached it, so that they could put on the best shows they could and exercise their art. And we're in a great city who's always had an incredible talent pool, incredible songwriters, singers, players.
It's amazing.
So, and I've called so many of my friends, and it's just such a blessing, such a cool thing. It's work, it's a job, but man, it's a passion, and it pulls at my heartstrings because you love seeing people have a good time. You love seeing the owner count up beer receipts at the end of the night, but you especially love it, when the band walks off soaked and sweating, and they're just they can't sit down for 30 minutes because they're still so excited. I mean, that's how I was after shows, man. I'd come home at 3 a.m. and it'd take me 2 hours just to wind down, So, but it's fun. I love being part of this university. You grow up, I'm a Vol fan, always have been. Blood runs orange, so I tell people we strive to do our best there at UT, and I try to do that at WUTK, even though I'm working with people who are doing this for the first time in their lives. So, but just again, it all goes back to making this place a better place for all of us. And if you can use your job to do that, more power to you.
It's amazing how many people come through the university that stay here. Musicians, artists, otherwise. And the musicians especially all end up, coming through your office at some point. It seems or trying to play on the radio. But
No
I
doubt.
look back at the musicians just that I've had on this show, and a lot of them didn't come from here. They come from somewhere else, and they ended up here because of the university, and
Absolutely.
they stayed, and they contribute to the musical fabric.
That's one of the things I love the most about Memphis. I took my first trip ever to Memphis last summer, and I loved it. Or summer before last, actually, because COVID was this summer. And, I reach back and I'm like, knocking myself upside the head because that's such a music city and it's so great in the history. But man, you think, I didn't know anybody from Memphis before I got to UT. You get to UT,
isn't that
man,
crazy?
it's like boom, and there's so many that are musically talented.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, I'm glad all you, thank God you Memphis people are here.
Yeah. And they
it was
hang
just
around a
whole
lot of times, too.
Absolutely, man. I mean, Nashville too. Obviously, it's a whole nother league now. But man, just the talent from Memphis musically, but they get it honestly down there, man. I mean, that's
in the water or
it's
something.
a great music city, and but I'd like keeping them. I don't want to give them back. Let them stay here in Knoxville.
I'm
man.
fine with it too, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially since we have all the good venues now. Because like I said, there was times there when I was booking, man. Our venue situation in this town was just absolutely
feel like it's good now?
horrendous. Oh yeah, especially comparatively speaking. I mean, you talk about making lemonade out of lemons. The Mercury Theater, God.
Where was it?
Where a Pred's Pub is now.
Okay.
And so I brought everybody from, holy jeez, man. I mean, everybody from Hum, Modest Mouse. I could go on and on. Got Up Our Voices, of course, Old 97s and Southern Culture came through there. We did Steve Earle, did V-Roy's CD release party there, and Steve Earle on stage with him, and he showed up in a suit, and because the guys played in suits, and just had some incredible Chris Connolly, William Tucker show there. I mean, just on and on. I look back, I'm like, geez, I cannot believe we pulled that off in the Mercury Theater, and it's pretty amazing. But again, at the time, that was it, man. That was the only, and it was us and Mahasty and Snake Snatch and Subway were all that was on Market Square,
exactly.
And God bless Mahasty because she sure fed a lot of my bands, and they loved that
she?
place. That Tomato Head helped take a little bit of the sting of walking into Mercury Theater away.
Really?
They go walk in there and
This is
PA
a nice place.
was shite, and it was bathrooms were god awful, and I'm like, but you can go down here to Tomato Head and get a really cool meal and get away from all this for a while. And so it worked out really well. But man, we had some incredible shows at Mercury Theater and birthed and grew some great local talent there.
Yeah.
I mean, Super Drag, and obviously the
Love those
V-Roys,
guys.
and I mean, Hyper Tribe, Gran Torino. So many of those bands played Mercury Theater too, and it was the joint, man. It was a cool place.
Do you think we're missing any size venue right now?
Yeah, we still in this town don't have a legitimate listening room. I mean, the Bijou is and can be. It's, to me, the finest venue in the South, acoustically speaking, sightlines. But we really need a place that you can put seats in. Laurel Theater is to a degree, but it's very exclusive with the Jubilee folks, and that's cool. We need a place where you can put 100 to 150 chairs, 200 maybe down, and it's a listening room. It's, you
What
can
about
have
the square room? Something like that?
I guess. I don't know what they're doing there, dude.
Yeah.
They're kinda,
Something that size, though?
you can pull it off of something that size. That might be a little big. I'm talking more of a. I don't know
About
if
Scruffy
you've
City
ever
Hall.
been to Down Home Pick and Parlor in Johnson City. That's where I cut my teeth on live music. Growing up seeing Newgrass Revival, Webb Wilder, Doc Watson, and it's a listening room. And a part of that is because the people that come there respect the music so
Right.
much, and so that respect is going back and forth. And you maybe on a good night put 200 people in there, but it's a smaller place. It's intimate. And so I think we could really use that, where you do your singer-songwriter nights, where you do your solo duo nights, or you bring in a, some sort of acoustic performer before they get to that Bijou status of selling 700 tickets.
And what about the Pilot Light?
It could be, but again, I'm talking more of a place where you could sit down to,
Gotcha.
where
Okay.
you got 150
Yeah.
chairs, 200 people can sit. That, and then again, going back to, man, we need a rock we need a rock place on the Strip. We need a place, you know. I mean, there's not as many bands on campus as there used to be. Jesus, I remember doing we started Battle of the Bands on campus years ago when I was at WUTK. I remember the second year we got 36 cassettes from 36 different acts on campus. 36.
So
man.
college students probably?
Yeah, they were. You had to have at least half the band had to be full-time students.
Gotcha.
And art and architecture building at the time, tons of bands were coming through there. Man, it was wild because most of the art and architecture students stayed up all night working on the projects, and so. It was there was always some little place on the Strip where you could go and play. And get your chops, you know, and nobody had to drive, so God only knows how much beer was consumed because you'd stumble back home in the fort.
Right.
The fort was a lot different then too. There were lots of band houses where one band would live
together, 4 rooms.
Yeah, but in the basement, 2 or 3 bands would practice. Like Monday night and Wednesday night, it was this band. Tuesday and Thursday, this band. And so there was always a party at those practices. And so, you know, these were good bands, and that was a really cool thing. Again, very organic. I keep going back to that word, but
it feels it's not around anymore, right?
Not as much. I mean, you know, if you're, you know, Pilot Like God Love, oh man, I'm so happy we've got that place.
Me too.
And is needed. But, you know, if your first show is at Barley's, you better be good. I mean, that's a big stage in a big room. So we need a smaller kind of, beer hall place on the Strip, I think, where these kids can put bands together and not be afraid and just, you know, throw it all against the wall and see if it sticks.
Yeah, bring your buddies. Bring 30.
Yeah, because we do a Battle of the Bands now, and I'll get maybe 8 to 10 fouls.
Really?
And it's like, oh, man.
What happened?
I know, man, because the talent's there.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to make music now and record
I think they're
it.
just on Ableton somewhere.
I guess, man. I don't know. I'm sure they're on their computer somewhere,
Yeah.
and you know, on YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, that's one thing I really miss is just the abundance of bands, man. Some of those freaking Battle of the Bands were just freaking, I mean, unreal, you know. And then I miss Alumni Gym. I mean, man, that was a rock hall. I saw so many great shows there. I got to interview Joan Jett there, who was one of the nicest people you ever meet. You know, saw U2 open for Jay Giles there.
Wow.
You know, I mean, on and on. George Thorogood and, you know, Busboys and Joan Jett and B-52s twice. And it was just a rock. It was an old gym, you know, and on the floor was a basketball floor, and then it had the balcony up top, and you could sneak a keg in if you wanted to. And it was a party. I mean, there were great shows there. Husker Du, Primus, Fishbone, Chili Peppers, you know, and you'd buy a ticket for like $9, you know. And
those days are over.
On campus, they sure are, and that's a damn shame because, man, that was a really cool part of being at UT in the 80s and early 90s was Alumni Gym and those really cool shows. Yeah. I think I lost part of my hearing in my left ear at that U2 Jay Giles show. I was on the 3rd row, and nobody even knew who U2 was at the time,
really?
Hardly. And Bono jumps right out in the crowd and goes nuts.
Just some guys from Ireland who happen to be opening for
Jay Giles totally
band.
Different, who were just great. And I miss that too.
Yeah.
But again, when you look at Mill and Mine and Bijou and Tennessee and Press Pub and Scruffy City Hall and Barley's and Jig and Reel and on, and there's just some great plays. Then you go out Maryville the Shed, man, they do great things out there. I've not been to
the Shed.
They do an incredible. Scott and those guys, you know, I mean, their last guy that just booked them, Josh Formott, was one of my former DJs.
Really?
So there's a lot of connection there we have with those guys, and they do a great job out there, you know. And
I've always felt like we're missing that in between the Tennessee Theater and Thompson Bowling Arena size venue. The Coliseum just is, for me, not.
That would have been your Alumni Gym right there.
Really?
Man, yeah.
That 5,000 person venue?
Even if that, probably more 3,000,
you
know, because you could still put 5 in the Coliseum, and it's good. It's, you know, seen some great shows. Best show I ever saw in my life was a concert there, and I've seen hundreds, if not thousands.
I bet you've seen
count.
thousands, because I've seen hundreds.
Yeah. And it was Prince in 1983. It was the 1999 album tour. And
really?
It was me and 17 of my dear friends from back home.
And this was alumni?
No, this was the Civic Coliseum.
Civic Coliseum, okay.
And it was March 83, I guess, senior year in high school.
All your Greenville buddies?
Oh, my God, dude. It was festival seating. And so, obviously there's nothing else to do in Greenville. So we get up here at noon on
Sure.
a Saturday because we're like, we're going to be first in line.
Prince played Knoxville on a Saturday?
Yeah.
You'd think that'd be
I
more of
think
a
it was
Wednesday
Saturday.
night stop
No, I'm
for
pretty sure
him.
it was a Saturday.
That's
and,
awesome.
And then, the Hyatt was up there on the hill.
Hyatt
And so
Regency?
we parked up there. Yeah, we had 3 different cars. We parked up there and we kept all the beer and stuff up there. So we'd do shifts. Half of us would be in the car drinking beer. The other half would be saving our place in line in the Coliseum. And I remember they opened the door and we were like, we get in and we're like, we're the first ones here. And we were.
Yeah.
There wasn't many people on the other side. And so
just
we
run.
went right to the front. Yeah, dude, back in those days, you just, boom, you take off, you run. And we got to the first frickin' row. It was like first and second row were me and a bunch of my friends from Greenville, and we're like, Prince. And
You're this far from Prince.
yeah. And so far, close enough he heard us. And that night, Vanity 6 gave my best friend Frank a banana that said, "Peel me Knoxville." And 2 of my other friends caught bandanas that the Time threw out. They opened up. It was Vanity 6, the Time, and Prince. And then, in the middle of Prince's set, he throws something out in the crowd, and all these girls jump, and I get it, and they jump on me, and I don't know what it is. So I put it in my pants. And so after the show, we get out, and I pull it out of my pants, and it's black bikini, like bottom bikini, panties or whatever. And I'm like, no wonder all these women, I guess. I'm like, no wonder all these women were jumping on me. And I've still got them. And I got a poster from that show as well, man. And that show blew I was a huge Prince fan anyway. I turned everybody back home onto Prince. I was onto him really, really early. And it literally altered my life. I mean, I'm just like, he blew my mind as a guitarist that night. Because when you're that close and a guitarist, and you're just like, it just blew my mind. And
is the "While My Guitar Gently Weeps" video?
Yeah,
with Tom Petty.
Yeah,
and all
we
that,
play that version actually. It's so incredible.
I had no idea he was such a shredder.
He was unbelievable. One of I think the 3 best of all time. And so that was the best concert I've ever seen, and there's never been a question. I mean, it was just that good. I've saw him 3 or 4 times, but that one was just, that was 1999 tour, so it was still, there was smaller venue obviously, but I'll never forget. It was so cool, because 2 things happened right when the lights went down. Number one, if you're in a Prince show and the lights go down, Joni Mitchell comes. He plays Joni Mitchell music before he comes on stage. Soon as the lights went down, you heard everybody scooting the chairs back, like this huge, where everybody just literally pushed all the chairs back so everybody could stand, And I mean, and as soon as he did, I mean, the lights went on and he played, and it was just the most incredible show ever. Incredible band. And then the lights came back on, and I remember looking because it was sold out completely. There were people behind the stage, and he wasn't playing
in the round
in 360.
Right.
And it was the most multicultural, multiracial.
That's great.
It was unreal. It was like, this show could not get any better. Then the lights came up, and I'm like, we're in Knoxville, Tennessee, and it looks like New York City. It just got better.
That's awesome.
And Prince has always been in my top 3.
I came on to him late, but man, I can see, and I see people who share the same affinity for him that you do, and it makes me respect him even more.
First time I ever heard him was on an 8-track, and it was a friend of mine had recorded it. And I don't know, probably too young for this, but used to back years ago when you record stuff, sometimes it would pick up if there was a CB radio nearby, it would bleed into your recording.
Yeah.
And this Prince 8-track had he'd be
bleed.
playing Dirty Mind, and I was like, I'm like, God. That's how I first got turned on to Prince years ago. And again, I hate how he left us, but man, he left us with a lot. So
he sure did. Mm-hmm. Man, Benny, I'm so glad that you came, and I appreciate you so much
Thanks
for
the
doing
beer, man.
Of course, thanks. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's cool. This is cool. This is, the station's getting ready to get into more podcasts. Our sports show already does it. Our music department's getting ready to do more in like new album reviews and things like that.
Good.
That's the direction it's going, and that's the one thing radio has been able to do from a technological standpoint, it's been able to kind of keep up, unlike newspaper, print media, just did not keep up with the technology. We're trying our best with, no budget and 18 to 22-year-olds driving the place, but it's working. And like I said, man, I let them bend my ear. I get advice from them on that stuff because that's the direction it's going. And if we can pick them up along for the ride, and then they're going to be listeners too. And so, but it's great being here. It's great that you are able to use this thing to shine a light on our city because it's amazing. I mean, it's a great city. It's cool to have been with AC and doing the things I did because we were very involved with the whole revitalization of downtown. And every one of us knew we could get where we are now. I mean, it's great, with big ears.
You knew what the finish line could look like?
We knew it, man. Yeah. We knew it. We went to too many shows. We knew too many people who, and we knew that if it became a consistent product and a consistent offering, there would be even more, and that people would live near it if they had a chance. And you go downtown now, and there it is, and we just got to get people they got to work together and get past this COVID. I'm not going to get into politics on this thing, but we got to, man. And I think we're at a point, especially since yesterday, with some leadership in place that's going to help us, and that's what we need because, man, I feel so bad for my musician friends and my artist friends and my venue owner friends, and they're losing money. We're losing money. Lots of people are losing money, but man, they can't even really practice their art in front of people, but I'm glad you are shining a light on these people because, like I said, a lot of them are friends of mine first and foremost, and I'm lucky because of that. But man, when you can put them on stage and turn the mic on and turn the lights on, and that's when you're like, yeah, this is why I do this.
Well, it's stuff that I've been interested in forever.
Yeah.
It's people like you that I've always wanted to talk to, and this just kind of gives them an excuse to come over and let's record it. Because if I'm interested in it, other people have to be interested in it too.
I hope so. I mean, I've had a pretty interesting life. I hope it's not been too boring for people. Maybe give them a little bit of a insight as to how I got from point A to point B to where I am now, I guess, too. But I've had a lot of help from a lot of good people. Some I've mentioned here, some I haven't. And you got to have good help along the way. You just got to. And I hope that I've been good help to, like I said, a lot of my friends, a lot of those folks, club owners, musicians, agents, but especially now, my role is a teacher, as a tutor, as a mentor. And so that's where a lot of my energy goes into, a lot of my priorities. And obviously I'm able to also do the things in a bigger picture for the city using the station and for this area and for others who are non-students. And, to be able to do all that is like I said, kind of my dream job, and then do it at UT where I love. It's a cool thing for you, man. It is. I'm lucky,
all
man.
your passions.
I really am. I mean, some days can get really crazy down there with the lack of funding. And if anybody wants to donate, WUTKradio.com, have at it. Go to the Support WUTK tab, and because we need it. We're turning 40 next year. We're going to do a bunch of fundraisers. We hope COVID's passed, so that we can really hopefully build a stable base for that station. Because Knoxville needs WUTK. They need WDVX. They need WOT. I mean, Knoxville's got the best left side of the dial that I know. But all those stations need to stay around to keep what I talked about, that big picture that so many of my friends and folks at AC Entertainment knew could happen. I think, just as vital as keeping DVX and us and UOT right there in the middle of it too.
I feel like the pendulum's got to swing back that way from Sirius and Spotify, and this whole kind of globalization of anything you ever want to hear is there. Like I feel like there's, like you said, the left side of the dial.
It is. Again, I think the important thing, anybody can play the music. You mix the local flavor in. You read the local weather. It's one less time you got to look at your phone while you're driving. If you tell them what the weather is, you give them, free pizza at Dazzo's, free meal for two at Sunspot. And you send them to these places because that once they have one experience there, they're going to go back. And, that's kind of what we do down there. One of the things we do, and we're just so lucky to be in a town with so many cool people, so many cool movers and shakers that support us and see the good that we do down there too. And you're right, man. We get out of this COVID thing, we got to have one big Knoxville party.
Let's do it.
Ain't no doubt about it.
Doors off of it, man.
It's going to happen. It will happen. We just all got to work together and make this thing be contained. It ain't going to go away. We got to contain it. So, but
do we miss anything?
I don't know. Just let me know when to do part 2, and I'll show back up as long as you got one more beer for me.
I'm gonna hold you to it.
That'd be no problem, man.
wait.
But I appreciate the opportunity, and like I said, I appreciate all the people who have helped me along the way to get where I am.
Yeah.
I tell my students, it's not about making that paper. You want to make money. If you want to be rich, that's fine. Go for it if that's your goal. My goal is to put an 18-hour day in and want to get up and do it all over again the next day. And I've done that for many years.
Right.
That's it. You're doing what you want, and boy, if you can be that lucky in life and have a beautiful wife like me, beautiful daughter like I do, I'm living that dream, man. Now if we can just get a football team, so and we're starting on that today since we got a new AD.
One step closer.
Yep.
Yeah. Benny, thanks so much, man.
My pleasure,
I appreciate it
Ben.
a lot. I'm looking forward to seeing you again sometime.
Absolutely. Good name, by the way, Ben, so that's
all
good.
my friends
And,
call me Benny.
There you go. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, and shout out to Andy Vincent for hooking it up, too, man. Another WUTK alum that just does great things there. And, man, it's cool. That's the other part of my job that's so cool to see
Watching
these guys
people
go on and do good things, and they never lose sight of that place. It's pretty cool of the station.
A lot of them came from your tree.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope they learned something down there that got them where they are. So,
Thanks so much, man.
absolutely, man.
Talk to you soon.
Keep it up.